Welcome to On the Point Podcast, a podcast for all things Overwatch with heavy focus on League, discussing roster moves, weekly matchups, and the Summer Showdown is coming up.
Yeah, I am very, very excited for this because we've got a lot of really interesting storylines going into this one.
I am a little mad because I didn't get to watch a lot of the matches live this weekend just because it was busy as hell. But I did get to watch a lot of the Sunday matches live, and I am honestly a little mad that we did not have double upsets. But that's me. I like weird shit like that.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, it would have made for a very interesting storyline. I mean, I'm glad the teams that got through did, but there were a whole bunch of things that very, very could have easily gone the other way and been fucking interesting to see how that plays out.
Bug nuts. Anyway, I'm Katie. I'm the support main.
I'm CJ, I'm the tank main.
And let's get going with the results for the metric fuck ton of Overwatch that was played during week 13.
Yeah,
Holy cow.
Yeah, so opening things up, we have a little bit of Blood Gulch, Red versus Blue, Atlanta Reign versus London Spitfire, and Atlanta takes the 3-0 with some BM. Like, they were not bothered at all.
I mean, we've seen London do better, but better was not enough. This is Atlanta. This is Atlanta gearing up for another tournament, remembering what happened last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Atlanta unwilling to roll over.
Yeah.
Speaking of rolling over,
I mean, do you wanna do this one?
I mean, not particularly. I was listening to this one while I was working and going, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Boston versus Houston, and Boston just easy clap 3-0s them. It was
Yeah.
bad.
It
It was bad.
it
Well, it's
was.
great if you're a Boston fan.
Yeah, and I feel like this kind of goes both ways in how this worked because Boston played a different style than they kind of had been up to that point. Um, it comes to a few things here. Um, so Boston Uprising, when they were going up against Houston, in the matches we'd kind of seen prior to this, they've been doing more of like they've been doing a lot more Reinhardt centric comps. Like, if memory serves, they were playing more brawly stuff. And I might be talking out of my ass, but that is what I remember for a lot of their Summer Showdown matches.
You say that like I've been paying any sort of attention to Boston.
I'm gonna pull up I'm gonna pull up like a couple of their matches. So yeah, having confirmed it, I am not spouting bullshit. They were playing a lot more of a Reinhardt focused style going into a lot of their Summer Showdown matches. And in Houston, they kind of brought out a new approach that I don't think we'd seen them break out before, which was a Genji Sombra dive with the Ana break backline. And Houston's base comp has, their double shield is kind of strong against it, but I think a lot of Houston played really passively for a lot of the match, which kind of let Boston, especially on the first map, Houston played pretty passively, and that allowed Boston to kind of find the angles that they wanted and take the engagements they wanted. Like they just played a much more mobile style and took advantage of it.
Yeah, this Houston was caught completely flat-footed and they did not adapt, and this was the one that had the potential to get them into the qualifiers, and they dropped it, and instead it solidified Boston as, I think, like the number 3 seed or something crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was definitely like they'd been performing better, and like again, I had high expectations for this team going into the season because I thought they had an improved lineup and they had a good head coach in Laurie. But I had kind of hit that point where I'm like, okay, there's growing pains happening right now. We're not really going to see anything super spectacular. But no, they did a great job against Houston here.
Yeah. And I mean, when was the last time Boston was in tournament contention?
Um,
Season one?
well, I was going to say, like in the current iteration of the Overwatch League where we have these monthly tournament cycles, fucking never. They like they were in a couple stage finals in season 1. I don't think there was anything, or they were in a couple stage playoffs in season 1. I don't
Yeah.
think
I think they
did
won at least one because they had a they had a perfect 13-0
I
during one
well,
stage.
I don't think they ever actually won a stage. Like the thing is, they had a perfect run through the normal season matches in a stage. Um, they came in second in the inaugural season stage 3 title matches.
That would have been their perfect stage, I think.
That I believe it was. I knew it was third or fourth, and I thought it was third.
Yeah, and that was the last time they really looked viable as a team.
Yeah, well, it was
It's
funny
been rough
too.
since then.
Yeah, like the thing is, going into season 1, like looking at their roster coming into it, they were expected to be at the start of the Overwatch League the worst team by far in terms of just like the name recognition of their players.
And
And
then the Shanghai Dragons said, "Hold my beer,"
well,
which we
yeah,
were going to be able to buy at the Overwatch at Blizzard Arena, and then we didn't. I think
yeah,
I'm okay with that.
Shanghai was a whole different story, and like I don't think most Overwatch League fans knew enough about Chinese Overwatch to really form an opinion until like the losses really started to stack up.
Yeah, until we realize, like, oh, this is gonna hurt. Oh
Yeah,
dear.
and like I definitely didn't think they were going to do well in the inaugural season, but I definitely didn't expect 0-40.
And now Shanghai is our finalist for the third tournament in a
Yeah,
row this season,
yeah.
having won the previous one.
Now it
So,
is not an exaggeration to say that they're the best team in the world.
how the turns have tabled.
Yeah. So, yeah, Boston, this is kind of the first time they've really looked strong enough to truly hang in a long time, and I'm excited for it because parity is a good thing when you're talking about competition in terms of having good matches and fun shit to watch.
Oh, yeah, we've said it more than once on this podcast. Parody is good, actually.
Yes. Going over
Speaking of.
yeah,
Oh,
going
no, go
over
ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say going over to APAC, we go from 2 3 zeros to a pair of 3 2s. First up, we have the Hangzhou Spark versus the NYXL, and Hangzhou picks up the 3-2 victory.
Which, I mean, these are teams that I think are a little more evenly matched in APAC than most. And
I
yeah,
I
I can see that.
I would agree, especially because I think NYXL is like I my biggest problem with them is still their coaching staff, but they've made a new improvement, or they were able to integrate Kalios into the roster this past week, which I think is a good thing, and I think he and Yakbung work pretty well together from what I was able to watch. Unfortunately, I can't stay up and watch as many APAC matches as I want to because work. Uh,
I listened to the VOD the next day.
yeah, well, and a lot of my work involves watching videos, so I can't even really do that.
Yeah. Yep.
Uh, so yeah, NYXL starts off taking the first map, and then Hangzhou picks up two. Like we go the distance here, and up until the end, it really was a fairly hotly contested match.
Yeah. And this I don't think the either of these were ones that I was able to watch because it was just too much going on all weekend. But yeah, this result doesn't surprise me. The next one does.
Yeah. So next up, we have the Chengdu Hunters versus the Philadelphia Fusion, and well, Fusion started off strong, and then we entered the Chengdu zone as Chengdu activated their secret weapon, the Orb of Confusion, and
Yeah.
No, that was a meme that I made back in like season 2 of the Overwatch League. Was I took that image of SpongeBob and Patrick holding the orb of confusion, and I just put the Chengdu logo over the ball.
Fair. I just all I can think of is, Chengdu used confusion. It's super effective. Like,
Yeah,
damn, this is
and
what they do.
yeah, Fusion got reverse swept, which that is an absolutely brutal position to be in. And when we were expecting Philadelphia to maybe, make it through this weekend and play in the Summer Showdown, it's definitely this was a rough weekend for them.
It really was. It's just rough. Although I figure getting reverse swept and then the team that reverse sweeps you being the ones to go to the tournament, it's
Yeah,
like, well,
at the
okay, if
at
we're
the
going to get
very
our asses
least.
handed to us,
Yeah,
at
no.
least the ones who beat us are going on.
Yeah, that's the you better kick their asses moment.
It's like, you better fucking win.
Yeah.
And Chengdu's out here like, lol, maybe. We'll try.
Speaking of ass kicking, the Shanghai Dragons took on the LA Valiant and beat them 3-0. I will say, it definitely got closer than it should have in some places because I really don't think Shanghai was trying their hardest.
You think Shanghai went, well, we have to play this one.
If you
So
watch
let's just have some
if
fun,
you watch the
guys.
first map especially, they were playing like they refused to reset when they were behind in a fight. They would just keep going and throwing ultimates and not giving a shit and just committing 1,000%. Like, and it like they ended up losing one of the points, and the first map ended up being relatively hotly contested against the Valiant, and like part of it was the fact that I think Shanghai was kind of fucking about. But the other thing is, we did see some members of the Valiant kind of look a little improved here. Like I still don't think Silver 3 is a match for Fate by any stretch of the imagination, but Milanron was, good in the way we expect him to be. Crystal was actually getting some fucking kills. Like, he was on that first map, especially, just clicking heads. Shochung had some moments, and, yeah, no, they had some moments where we got to see them, like, where we got to see some flashes of this team's potential. We also had a pretty solid first map as well. Like we saw a bunch of them show up in a way that we haven't really seen them do. And I don't know how much of it was the sort of opportunity afforded by sloppy play, or how much of it is kind of comfort growing, or what the story is there. But if they play at that level, and if they, aren't just relying on Milanron just turbo fucking to win a fight, that's a step towards them actually being able to take a W. I don't know that I think it's going to happen anytime soon, because I feel like the rest of their division has kind of improved faster than they have around them. But
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, in terms of did they get better or was Shanghai fucking around? Six of one, half a dozen of the other.
oh, I think the
Approaching
answer is
this,
very much both.
yeah, I mean, you're always going to do better when your opponent's acting like they're playing in gold, but it's not even plat, gold.
Yeah,
Make better decisions.
they
And I say
definitely.
this as someone who's hard stuck in bronze.
And yeah, they like I Shanghai like they weren't throwing, but there was a lot of moments where I'm like, this isn't how you should approach this.
Yeah, and honestly, that's kind of insulting to the
Oh,
Valiant.
oh
Like,
yeah, no, it is.
guys.
Well, the thing is, like, Atlanta kind of had the same BM going against London, or like not the same thing, but similarly, just like we don't give a shit, we're gonna win this levels of play. Um,
Yeah.
one
I
other
do have
thing.
to.
Oh,
Oh, go
sorry. Go.
ahead.
I was gonna say one other thing in regards to Shanghai was they played Mali on the first map instead of Izayaki, and Izayaki
Huh.
uh, didn't get picked nearly as much as Molly did after he got tagged in.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Izayaki.
Yeah.
He's good. I, I have to wonder if Shanghai kind of got taken aside by their coaching staff after the first map and went, "Really? Fucking really?"
Well, yeah, no, like that was like the casters were making the same joke about like this is one where they win where it's where you go backstage the coach isn't going to be going, oh, awesome work. It's going to go, yeah, good job on the win, but like I
Really, guys?
the thing that came to my mind, and it's a very hyper specific reference, but um there's a magazine called XXL, and it's a rap magazine, and they would have these things called the freshman ciphers, where it's a bunch of like freestyles done by guys who kind of broke out over the course of the year. And there was one that they had in, I think it was 2016, where it was like Anderson Paak, um, Designer, and Lil Dicky. And Designer literally just repeated the same hook 5 times. And you just saw Lil Dicky in the background with this look of like, I okay. I actually tried. Was like, is this okay, great, cool. It was like the look of the kid who like studied really hard for the test and then finds out it's canceled.
Yeah.
It looked like his verse was going to start off with, "First off, I'm disappointed in both of you. Uh, didn't do
One of
what the
those where
fuck
the
you
first question where
didn't do
never
what the
mind.
fuck you were supposed to do."
Yeah.
And so I could just imagine like that face. If anyone looks up that video, just look at Lil Dicky in the background. And that's the face I was imagining Moon making that entire first map.
It's just it's insulting to the Valiant, and also, even if you know you're going to win, you at least want to stay in practice. You at least want to play your best, because we've seen what happens when top tier teams develop bad habits. Gestures loudly at San Francisco, who can
Yeah.
no longer support those bad habits. So, yeah, like on the one hand, I get it. You want to do the home run walk around the bases.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, fuck's sake, guys, you're not in the tournament yet.
No. Uh, I mean,
And then
realistically,
they were.
yeah, and then they were. Speaking of, and then they were, we had another London Spitfire match, this time against the Washington Justice over in NA, and Washington Justice picks up another 3-0 victory. The London Spitfire do not upset the Florida Mayhem in terms of map differential for this stage.
Yeah, it's this whole weekend. It was either 3-0 or map 5. There were like two exceptions, three exceptions. When we
Yeah.
had 15, 16 games,
Mm-hmm.
that is
And
a shit ton of 3-0 and also a shit ton of map 5.
yeah, no, and like they tended to kind of roll in packs. Like you'd have like a bunch of 3-0s back to back to back, or at least 2 to 3 5 map series back to back to back.
Oh my god, I just counted 20 games. No wonder this weekend felt so fucking heavy. 20 games.
So
Man.
let's get into the next one. Let's keep it rolling.
Yeah.
LA Gladiators versus the Toronto Defiant, and the Gladiators pick up the 3-0 victory.
I thought Toronto was going to do better here, honestly.
I
Pleased as
did.
punch for the Glads, but I thought Toronto would at least pick up a map.
Yeah, I did too, but correct me if I'm wrong because I very well may be. I was kind of in and out during this one doing a bunch of cooking, but I remember for at least one of the matches they didn't play as much of a Spire. Like I think they played him in the Gladiators match, but was it the match against the Fuel where he wasn't really in it as much?
I mean, I have no idea. This weekend was a haze. So I remember listening to this, but also it was just like, "Yay, the Glads are winning. Show me the Battle of Texas." And
Okay.
then just kind of wanting to lie on the floor after the Battle of Texas was over.
Hmm.
Friday was weird. So
Okay, so I did look it up, and it was they played Aspire in the Dallas Fuel match for the first two maps, and then um, and then they had Nyston for the back two.
that okay, yeah.
But yeah, I will say I think Defiant has a way to go before they realize the potential that I think they have on their roster, but I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting this to be quite so one-sided in the Glads match.
We've just been seeing Toronto do so much better against such good teams, and I feel like they had a match against San Francisco recently, and I could be remembering this incorrectly, but I feel like they had a match with San Francisco and they did well, and they had a
Mhm.
match with some of our better teams and they did well. I think at this point, I need to stop using San Francisco as a mental measuring stick. I need to kind of swap them with Atlanta Reign, which is crazy, but
Mhm.
that's kind of where we are. I think San Francisco has taken up our kind of middle of the tier pack at this point. Middle of the pack team. What day is it? What
I
are words?
Well, the thing is, I wouldn't even necessarily call the middle of the pack, but the thing is, and I'll use my MMA like touchstone for this, but you have
Mark that
fighter
off on your bingo cards,
yeah,
listeners.
you have fighters that are unranked in a division, then you have people who are in the top 15 and then who are in the top 5, and then you have the guys who are in the title picture. They went from title picture to being in the top 10, which is still really
Yeah.
good, still more than enough to beat the majority of people who compete in this discipline, uh, handily. But at the same time, they aren't in that same echelon where, like, I'm trying to think of like someone I could name, that would be.
McGregor.
Yeah, but the thing is, honestly, McGregor and San Fran might not be the worst comparison right now because they've both kind of fallen off from where they were. Though I don't know that I would have put McGregor in the same tier as San Fran in terms of dominance because I think he was always somewhat limited as a fighter.
Fair, I don't know much about it. I just know that if I'm remembering this correctly, disaster befell him in his last match, and
That is,
that kind of sounds like San Francisco.
yeah. Like, well, the thing is, I feel like if you're going to compare an MMA team in terms of like, or an MMA team and an Overwatch
A
League
whole
team,
team of
yeah,
people fighting. That
That
would be
that's a
insane.
that's a thing in Eastern Europe.
I'm sure it
It
is.
very
I think
routinely
they call
turns.
it rugby.
No, like, I mean
No, I
legitimate,
know, I'm
yeah.
kidding.
Yeah, it
I'm
very
I
routinely turns into, like, 3 or 4 people just beating the shit out of the last guy remaining on the other team. Um,
Oh no, I was just fully here to make the requisite rugby joke.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is with McGregor, his weapons were getting inside of people's heads, using creative striking to set up his power left hand and the power left hand itself.
San Francisco.
Well, the thing is, they played the meta really, really fucking well across a number of things. I think they're a very well coached team, and that's what allows them to bring the highest level of potential out of their players. It's really good synergy. I think they're a much better, like, what they're a much more well at the height of their power, they were much, much more well-rounded than a lot of the competition, while still being superlatively skilled in any individual role.
Hence all of us making jokes about why do they have 15 DPS players? Oh, one for each hero. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Um. See, I don't think McGregor and the Shock is a good comparison because, frankly, there are people who I think if McGregor fought them would probably have beaten him sooner. But
I don't know MMA. I remember him because he's Irish and people talk about
Well, yeah,
him.
no, he's also legitimately, like, regardless of whatever you think of him as an individual, and there's a fucking lot to be said there. He's not a great dude, um,
Oh,
to say the least.
ah,
Um,
never mind then.
yeah,
Ah.
he is legitimately the biggest star in terms of the pure numbers that MMA has ever had. So it's not a surprise that that's the touchstone. I was trying to think of someone who'd be a better example that you might know, and those people aren't as famous.
Tyson?
Tyson could be a decent one, but like, um, we're getting off track here.
Anyway, yeah, my point being San Francisco is no longer a good measuring stick for how good is this other team as compared to Dallas is. I want to say Atlanta is at this point. But
Um,
looking at, well, how did Toronto do against San Francisco? Not as great of a measuring stick. How did they do against Dallas? How did they do against the Gladiators? How did they do against these teams that are performing more consistently this season?
yeah, and I think that's a fair assessment. Like, Shock have become something that we didn't really think they'd ever look like again after, two straight seasons of just ass pounding dominance. Um,
Mediocre?
I was going to say inconsistent.
Oh, better.
Like,
Slightly less heartbreaking to the Shock fans that I know who listen to this podcast.
I,
Hi!
I don't think mediocre is a fair thing to put. I think they're still better than the majority of teams in the league, but they're definitely not the world beaters anymore.
This is true.
That
This is true.
you can't rely on the pieces to perform in the way that they did, or the coaching and synergy, all that.
Oh, speaking of the world beaters,
Yeah. So
enjoy
Dallas
it.
Fuel,
Enjoy it.
they take the Houston Outlaws lunch money again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, you get a green team in a rivalry, they wind up with the losing record. That's just how it is. If Houston goes to China, I'm going to lose my fucking mind.
Mhm. Houston, like this was so I expected them to do better than they did, but like I do feel like this weekend they didn't do an amazing job of taking advantage of like the compositional strengths that they had, that I think have made them good against Dallas, while Dallas has continued to improve.
Yeah, this was not a great weekend for Houston. And I don't know if this was just still being boomed from getting wrecked by Boston going into a match that they knew was going to be difficult. I don't know if this was just comp differences or Dallas continuing to be on an upward trajectory that's basically a vertical line. I have no idea, but it did not look good. It looked
No.
great for Dallas. It did
Yeah.
not look good for Houston.
Yeah, like Houston like started off so strong, and now like they're like, don't get me wrong, they're still one of the better teams in the league. There is no denying that, even a little bit. And if you say otherwise, I don't think you're paying close enough attention. But at the same time, they are not succeeding in the way that you would expect them to based on their win-loss record.
It's a whole lot of close but no cigar.
It is. And I think they've got a really talented roster. I think they've got a good coaching staff. And I think they just need to figure out how to put things together. Like, I think sort of the passive play style didn't really help them, but I don't think that's the only issue. That being said, this was very satisfying to me because I was reminded, like, immediately before the match of the fact that after the first Battle of Texas that we had in this season, Crimzo posted on Twitter that, like, I'm so glad that in our first match we got to expose Dallas as a shit team. Nothing else matters. And I'm just like, so how's that going for you, buddy? I
We
love you.
call that hubris.
I love you. I root for you. But the thing is, I'm gonna rub your fucking nose in that one.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard not to go, hubris when that
especially,
happens.
especially because if you think about it, so let just think back to, so we have the Dallas Fuel knocking the Houston Outlaws out of the summer showdown. Losing to Dallas Fuel shut the door on them being able to compete in the Summer Showdown. Then if
Yeah,
you
getting
go
3-0'd twice slid them in below San Francisco.
Yes. And then if you go back to the June joust, you'll notice that there was another result there that Dallas kept them out of that tournament.
Must you hurt me?
And then
Must you hurt me?
you go back to the May Melee,
Oh, we're hurting me tonight.
and who kept Houston out of that tournament but another 3-0 from the Dallas Fuel.
I know you find this funny because Crimso Hubris, but I'm dying, Squirtle.
It's gotten to the point where I'm just like expecting like Sparkle and Fearless with Infinity Gauntlets. Just we are inevitable anytime the fucking Outlaws and Fuel play.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I wanted to just like at the point where this ended, I had like an hour left in my shift at work, and I just kind of wanted to sign off and lie on the floor. Uh, this is painful.
I mean,
But I mean,
I thought it was a tour de force. I don't know what you're talking
mm,
about.
mm,
Shall we go over to APAC?
beauty and unending agony, it turns out, are both in the eye of the beholder.
Shall we go over to APAC? Shall we leave this pain behind for now?
Sure, it never truly leaves. It stays with you. But that's okay.
Luke,
I've
Luke,
had so many people ask me if I was okay recently.
Luke Skywalker. No one's ever really gone. And then you just hear me in the background.
If
In
that
my
makes you
Dallas Fuel
Palpatine, I
jersey.
want out. If that makes you Palpatine, I want out.
I also wouldn't want to be Palpatine in Rise of Skywalker.
Nobody wants to be Palpatine. Ah! Anyway.
Yeah. NYXL versus Philadelphia Fusion. NYXL continues to have Philly's number and picks up the win 3-1.
Yeah, I thought Philly was going to take this. I thought is their whole team back together, or do they still have one or two outliers?
I believe they still have one or two outliers because I don't know if Poco is with them or not. Like they haven't played him. But
He might be in quarantine. I have no idea.
he like the last time I checked in on his status, he was being cheeky on social media, and that was about it.
I
Like
mean,
teasing it, but
find me an Overwatch player.
well, I was gonna say that's also just very on brand for Poco specifically.
Yeah. So yeah, I was expecting better for Fusion, but I think that's kind of the theme. I think the theme of this weekend for a number of teams is, I expected better.
Yeah, agreed. So moving over to the next one, we have LA Valiant going up against the Chengdu Hunters, and Chengdu picks up the 3-0 victory.
This is once again my surprised face that is not in any capacity surprised. I assume that Chengdu did not spend the first map fucking around.
I don't think so.
Not,
I mean,
not more than Chengdu normally does.
yeah, I was about to say Chengdu has a higher like baseline for that particular scenario.
I mean, true, but there's also there's fucking around, and then there's chaos, and there is a Venn diagram overlap, but I don't think they're always in that Venn diagram overlap. I think they tend to be more fully in the chaos sector.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, so that's the chaos sector, the Chengdu chaos sector. I don't know. The Chengdu zone is still better. Let's be
the Chengdome.
The Chengdudome.
Yes, the Chengdudome. It's made of bamboo.
Bamboo and murder.
Yeah. So next up, we have the Hangzhou Spark up against the Shanghai Dragons, and this one is not a 3-0. The Hangzhou Spark do pick up a win on Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, good for them, honestly.
Yeah, no, they've continued to look better bit by bit, but I think, they still have a ways to go before they... That's the thing with a lot of the APAC teams is that a lot of them have really, really talented rosters, and I expect them to, to be better than they've ended up being.
I
That
think part of that is APAC is a smaller pool by 33%. And I do think we would see a lot of APAC teams higher in just the normal roster were we doing season one, season two style play and everyone played. Everyone.
Yeah, and I don't think you're wrong with that. Like I do think that like the majority of the APAC teams would be in the middle of the pack, not at the bottom.
A few notable exceptions, but yeah.
Yeah, like I said, the APAC teams, not any specific teams by name.
Yeah.
Right.
You can say my ex. We all know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, good
back
for
over to
Hangzhou.
yeah,
Taking a map off Shanghai is not the easiest thing in the world to do.
it is not. However, speaking of taking maps, Boston was unable to do so against the Atlanta Rain, and Atlanta picks up the 3-0 victory.
Atlanta was just on an entire tear this weekend. And I would not be surprised if that continues well into the tournament because they got shit to prove.
Yeah, they're back. They're looking to have the same momentum going into this tournament cycle uh, that they did back in the June joust, and we'll see if they can keep that up.
I was going to say,
Um,
hopefully, we don't get a repeat performance in the losers' final.
mhm. Agreed. Next up, we have the Dallas Fuel against the Toronto Defiant. We already talked about this a little bit, but the Dallas Fuel take the 3-1 victory over the Toronto Defiant, punching their ticket to the Summer Showdown.
Yep. And this, again, Toronto doing fairly solidly
Yeah.
against one of the best damn teams in the league.
Yeah, no, like the thing is, I do think Toronto has a lot of potential, and it's just a matter of them realizing it. Like I think they've got a good coaching staff, and they've got a good roster. But I'm very happy that like for the first time in the sort of tournament cycles of the year, we saw the Dallas Fuel get in without like being I would like get to the
Scraping
knockout,
by.
getting into the knockouts without like some of it potentially being out of their hands. Because May Melee, I think they only got in on like a map in difference. Like I think it was
Yeah,
like they were one map ahead of the Gladiators.
something like that.
Yeah, so Justice versus Gladiators. The Washington Justice end up picking the 3-2 victory against Los Angeles. And this was actually a really, really close, fun one to watch.
All I can remember is from back in the day, a bunch of Gladiators fans rooting for the Justice because they were sitting on the correct side of the arena, and the chant was just, "It's a shield."
Yeah, I remember that.
That was a wild day. That was a battle for LA day, which is
Oh,
why
yeah.
it was all Valiant and Gladiators fans. And it's just like, nah, you just root for the side that you're on at this point.
Yeah.
Proximity and nothing else.
And this was a crazy one to watch because the Gladiators were this close to the reverse sweep. Justice go up 2-0 in the first two maps. Then you have the deciding map on Busan. And I gotta say, this was a very interesting one to watch for me just because it was right after like it was within a very brief span of time from the Dallas and Toronto game, and in the post match interview for that, they asked Fearless about like the wrecking ball comp and how much that messed them up, and if they think they're gonna try and figure out how to counter with their own strengths, or what basically how they were going to deal with Shanghai. Were they going to try and learn that comp, or they're going to try and do it their own way? And he said that the wrecking ball comp, if you can learn it and be very good at it, that it's definitely really powerful. But it's one of those things that if you can't master it to that degree, you're going to end up kind of looking foolish. And so we're going to beat them on our own strength. And it was kind of ironic to me that Gladiators go pretty much they go So they go the majority of the match without using it. They use it on Hanamura, the wrecking ball, and that was one of the maps that they lost. Though they weren't using it like the entire way through, but they were playing more, dive. They were playing more Reinhardt, and then when we get to that map 5 on Busan, they break out the wrecking ball comp, and it was like just one of those things of just like there's something prophetic
Hmm.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Just guys.
Yeah, and this is like I will say this was a match that I was very interested in one way or the other, just because like I might not have a particular horse in this race, but Muse and Mag were both guys that I was really excited to see come into the Overwatch League because they had been such standouts in Korean contenders. And while they hadn't, up to this point, really lived up to the hype that was kind of behind them at the start, it was still kind of cool for me to see them stack up again.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously I did have a horse in this race and they lost, but that's life. Sometimes your pick'ems are incorrect. If
I,
you're me, that's often.
I was going to say you're also someone who was a Valiant and Houston fan, and historically speaking, that has been a rough time.
I'm used to it. As I have said more than once, I am also an Air Force Falcons and Denver Broncos fan.
Mhm.
And guys, that leads to some rough seasons.
Yeah,
How many years was Fisher DeBerry the coach of the Falcons? How many years was running the option our only strategy on offense? Yeah, those were some rough years.
so yeah, I don't know anywhere near enough about football to really contribute on that score, so I will take your word for that.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't know anything about MMA either, but we we get along.
Yeah,
It works as I sit here and yell about my college football team and their record from fucking god 12 years ago at this point. Anyway, yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I've been doing this for a while, folks. You kind of get used to it and you learn to pick yourself up and then party at the tailgate afterwards. That's life.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. My school was not particular. Well, they were well known for football. They just weren't necessarily known for being good at it. But
Ah, you went to Notre Dame. No.
no, I'm Irish,
Every
but I'm
Notre
not one
Dame
of the
fan out
fighting.
there,
Yeah,
excuse me. I'm like, no, no. Notre Dame hasn't been good for years. Don't,
yeah.
don't, don't.
I am Irish. I am not one of the fighting Irish. Anyway,
Same.
so yeah, I will say I don't necessarily think that going the wrecking ball comp is what lost it for the Gladiators, but I don't think they looked as good at it, and it's more just me being amused by this. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's kind of the most that I have to say about that match. Honestly, it was a really good one. It was very tough, very closely contested throughout a lot of it. It was a fun match. Check it out.
I just kind of ended both of the Gladiators matches Saturday, Sunday, just loudly going, fuck,
Yeah,
in the middle of an
yeah.
empty apartment. So, you know, that's that's my life.
Eh,
Moving on to the knockouts.
yeah, over to APAC, we have the NYXL going up against the Shanghai Dragons, and their recent upward trajectory was not enough to carry them through the day, and the Shanghai Dragons claim victory 3-0, knocking out the N
Shanghai. Go ahead.
knocking out the NYXL and securing their spot as the number one seed from the East.
Shanghai looked at that upward trajectory and went, plateau time.
Yeah.
Like, okay. All right. Thank you for the 2 week break. We will come back stronger once we know what the fuck the hero pool is going to be.
I mean, that's the hope, isn't it? But
Eh,
next
eh.
up, we have the Seoul Dynasty against the Chengdu Hunters, and it's Chengdu that takes the win there, that manages to eke it to eke out the win in a 3-2 fashion, where Seoul takes the first map, Chengdu take the next two, and Dynasty takes the fourth, and then we go to map 5 where Chengdu take that 2-1. I will say this had my favorite Oh, production shouldn't have gotten that on camera moment of the week.
Which one was it?
Did you see the sign?
There were many signs.
There was a fan who ended up like right up on camera, that she was holding a sign of a panda bumming a tiger.
Well,
Yeah, that was one of those moments of like, it was right there, guys. You know that's not supposed to be there. You can't have missed that. It was like a third of your fucking view.
this was why they made they this is why they did a check of all of our
Mhm.
signs before we were allowed to bring them into the Blizzard arena. This is why.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What I loved about honestly what I loved about watching all of the live matches, for one, was hearing the fans go nuts, and for another,
Oh,
I
I love
loved
that
the
energy.
sheer number of people who had tablets of some form and would just change what it said or change the image, and that was their sign. I thought that was fucking brilliant.
Yeah,
I liked that a lot.
it's good stuff. Like I like when you can have the crowd reaction in that tangible way.
Oh yeah.
It
And I mean, I love the papercraft signs that we had at the arena. I think Reba made a
mhm.
lot of them, but damn, they
Oh
were
yeah.
good. But there's just something about the digital ones that are like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah, the and that's fun, and at the same time, there's it reminds me of pro wrestling in a way, where like the crowd reaction is so loud and visceral, and it's a part of the show in a very tongue in cheek way in a lot of stuff. Like, you know, a time that we were both at the Blizzard Arena when it was like three 5 map series in a row,
God damn.
and then we get to the fourth, and the crowd is chanting for, I think it was Dallas playing in the last game because I remember I was super hype about it. Um, and the crowd was chanting "No map five, no map five," and
Yeah.
like that was a moment where I'm like, this is a very pro wrestling thing, just because wrestling crowds like they they'll have fun with it and try and get themselves over a little bit. Like, there, one of my favorite things is that like a guy named Daniel Bryan had chants of yes and no, and it became like a crowd reaction to things. Like when they didn't like something, they just go no, 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 like everyone in the arena all at once.
Man, I'm and we didn't get to hear a lot of the fan reaction
Mhm.
because, there's a separate set of casters for NA than there is in APAC, of course.
Mhm.
And so they were able to essentially cut the audio feed from the arena for the NA cast. Can't wait till we start doing more live events here and you hear people losing their goddamn minds over the I I learned yelling at referees from my dad, who doesn't normally do that kind of thing or condone that kind of behavior, but he made it very clear that if you're going to do that in an enclosed arena where everyone can hear you, you wait for the silence and you
That's the
make
move.
yourself heard.
That's
My
the
dad
move.
is very loud, and I learned he can be when he wants to be. And I learned a lot from him, and I cannot tell you when. But there is in one of the VODs, it's probably still on Twitch because it's 2 seasons ago. You can hear me during one of the silent parts, during I can't remember who was playing or what was going on, but nothing was fucking happening. You can hear me at the top of my lungs yelling, "Make like Bob and do something!"
Yeah, I remember those.
It's just I'm terribly proud of that, and I really shouldn't be. But goddamn, if you're gonna do it, you wait for your
Yeah,
moment.
you've got to wait for the moment, and then you got to just full commit,
You
all
gotta
commitment,
fucking nail it.
no hesitation.
So yeah, there's an art to yelling dumb shit during a match, and I can't wait to employ it again once more people get vaccinated.
Hmm.
That's gonna be what it takes, ladies and gentlemen. So let's do that.
Let's in the meantime, let us push on back to NA.
Yep.
Paris Eternal against the Washington Justice, and the Washington Justice eke out the 3-2 victory. The Paris Eternals run through the Summer Showdown has come to an end.
I was kind of surprised that Paris got in. Like, not surprised they've been doing well, but they certainly weren't a team I was thinking about being in contention. I'm not surprised that Washington won,
Especially with the
but
form they've been in over the weekend, because they looked really, really fucking good over this weekend, especially.
yeah. And again, Justice's performance has been mercurial and based on a multitude of factors. But depending on what the hero pool is, I could see Paris going for a stronger run in the Countdown Cup.
I think it's possible, and like I think with the Paris Eternal, it was kind of easy to write off some of their wins, because two of them were against London and Vancouver, which are kind of gimmies, and it undercuts
The
the sort of
majesty of the victory.
yeah, it makes it easy to sort of not really notice it or not mentally weight that win much.
Yeah.
Um, but the thing is, they still went into this 3-1. They looked really good. They've had a lot of smart moments. Their match against the Gladiators recently showed like a really masterful adjustment in that map 5. And it's a shame to see it kind of come to an end here, but Washington was just the better team on that day.
Yeah. And again, I would love to see what Paris is going to pull out. And again, so much depends on the hero pool in the rain in Overwatch season 4. I don't know. I don't know the wheelbarrow poem enough to parody it. But I think we're going to see some fun crazy shit out of Paris.
I think that that's a fairly safe bet. Um, so next up, we had the LA Gladiators against the Boston Uprising. And the Boston Uprising, well, this is where their luck ran out because the Gladiators took a dominant 3-0 win.
I always appreciate it when gladiators can go into this rivalry and just dunk them straight into the garbage. I mean, it's kind of a terrible thing to say, and I should apologize to the Boston fans who may or may not be listening to this podcast, but I like it when they win. You
It
know?
is funny too because it's like if my memory serves of this rivalry, it's either like a brutal back and forth that Boston ends up winning, or Gladiators is just like what rivalry? It's one of the two.
Yeah. It's we refuse to admit there's a rivalry right up until they show up and hit us in the face with it. And this is one of those, I don't remember if it was season 2 or last season, but one of Boston's more difficult seasons. And then the Glads would go up against them and it would be Boston's first win in forever. And it's just like, fucking really? Come
Mm,
on.
yeah,
But here's the thing. Gladiators are kind of without a local rivalry. There's the whole thing with San Francisco. There's the Custody Cup, which I know has an official name, but I can't remember it because the Custody Cup lives in my head rent free. Um, I know there's a California rivalry, but it's not the same as the Battle for LA, so you kind of got to go with what you've got. And I am okay with just staring at Boston like, you want to go? You want to fucking
yeah,
go?
and
Let's
like
go.
and like let's be real, the rivalries for the Shock. I think right now you would think of like them trying to beat Fuel or Houston, considering how they've been beaten by both a lot recently. And I think you'd think of Atlanta Rain before you'd think of the Gladiator
Yeah.
for that. Like,
Yeah.
and of course there's the big one of them against the Vancouver Titans. And while the Dragons were kind of like in contention for that top spot throughout a lot of last year, like they didn't play enough for it to really feel like there was a strong rivalry between those teams specifically.
Yeah, for San Francisco, I really do think of like, oh, who's their current rivalry? Oh, Atlanta.
Yeah,
That's just how it works. And for Gladiators, it's Boston.
yeah.
Because their local rival fucked off halfway around the world. And, they were well within their rights to do so, but also,
Well, I mean, at the very least, the Gladiators can say we ran them out of town.
It's true.
We ran him out of the fucking
That's
continent
not in
early.
any capacity what happened,
No.
but true.
Yeah, like they ceded control of the city and the continent to us, so that's
We'll take it. We'll
yeah.
take it. They
Um
left. Yeah, all right. Oh, okay.
so up next we had two absolute fucking bangers of series, both going to map 5. Washington Justice versus Dallas Fuel. Uh 3-2 win for Dallas. This was an insanely close one that even though like as a Dallas fan I was fucking anxious for a lot of it. This was a
Yeah.
fucking good match that I was very excited to watch.
This is one where, you sit down, you look at the pick'ems, and I'm kicking myself for not picking Chengdu for my pick'ems because I was thinking about it, and then I was like, nah, and then I didn't, and now I'm like, I have regrets. But for this one, they give you the whole list of teams and say pick two. And I just went with, all right, Dallas, Atlanta. They're both in. They're relatively safe bets. And then watching these two matches on Sunday and both of them going map fives and going to Dallas and Atlanta. On the one hand, it's like, well, that's good for my pick'ems when I'm in like 3,000th place. Great. And on the other hand, I'm like, my God, what I wouldn't have given for a double upset and the Shield teams to be going to this tournament. Admittedly, that might have just handed Shanghai the win if that were the case, because they're a tough team to go up against regardless. And as much as I love the Gladiators, I don't think the Glads are on their level. Justice, the way they're playing now, is a different story. But man alive, I would have loved to see Chengdu and Washington and Gladiators in a tournament setting with Shanghai.
It would have been
Just to
crazy.
have something new.
Yeah, like I think despite the parity that or like the league being a closer thing than we've seen in past years, like we've still established the teams that make up that S tier, and they're Dallas and Shanghai, and like there are other teams that can fight for that ground, but the ones who keep turning up time and again when they need to, it's these two. That
But
being
this is
said,
also Chengdu's second go around and Atlanta's
this is
out of
true.
3 tournaments.
And for Atlanta, it's the second in a row. For Chengdu, they missed the June Joust.
Yeah, they missed it to New York, who had kind of a crazy surge, and that's when we thought Hongshou would make it. And then our only American one off was Florida, who is
Mm-hmm.
not doing super hot right now. So
No.
again, as it's going to be a good weekend of matches. It's going to be a good tournament. We may or may not have a redemption arc in the cards for Atlanta. I would lose my entire goddamn mind if Atlanta won, let's be real.
Yeah.
But I really, when it looked like that it might have been in the cards, I really wanted Washington and the Gladiators to go to the
Mm-hmm.
tournament. I just did.
I think it would have been great, and like obviously I'm happy that Dallas won, but I gotta give it up like in this match to Mag specifically. He like someone fed that motherfucker some rare candies between matches because he was fucking for the majority of this match against Dallas. There was some MPD shit happening on in these Reinhardt duels, and he was landing some epic shatters right up until the last map. Like up until the last map, I really do think he was outplaying Fearless more often than not.
So there's a prediction on the desk, and I cannot for the life of me remember who made it. I think it was Reinforce, but Mag for Rookie of the Year. Do
I
you agree?
I here's the thing. I would have, thought he's a very strong contender at the beginning. The thing in this particular case is I think we need to see him play to this level more consistently because the first half of the year was very rough for him. And while I don't think that was entirely, entirely on him, I think we need to see a very strong, consistent performance to make up that, the rest of that ground.
Fair. Absolutely
I
fair.
think he's a bad motherfucker, and he's a very, very good main tank. Like he's a guy that I had definitely talked up, but at the same time, before I say like this guy was the definitive incoming player, I want to see a little more.
Fair.
I want that potential to be realized more consistently.
So yeah, we've got one Bug Nuts crazy match, and then we go to another Bug Nuts crazy match in a
Yeah.
completely different way. We have the Gladiators falling to Atlanta in a map 5. And I appreciate what I believe it was Uber and Mr. X that were casting this. And I appreciate what they said about these both being extremely defensively oriented teams. So the holds were incredible, but the offenses weren't a lot to write home about. So that this was a lot of shield bashing, essentially.
Yeah.
Which I like that. And I think it's going to cause, I think it would have caused either of them trouble in the tournament, honestly. And I think it'll be interesting to see what Atlanta does going forward, because moving forward, Dallas is aggro and balanced, Shanghai is aggro and balanced, and Chengdu is bug nuts insane. So,
Chengdu is a
I,
line of cocaine.
I mean, yeah, yeah, you, the something something Chengdu Inquisition, unexpected, etc. So it will be interesting to see how this holds up against that. And again, we got a good taste of it in the last tournament, but the last tournament was hero pools. This one is not, and the last tournament did not have Chengdu.
Yeah, and like I will say that I do think, playing Overwatch defensively in like a bunker composition has its moments, but I do think aggressive play is more often than not more ideal. Just because if you're the ones initiating the fight, you are the ones dictating where it takes place and how it starts, and that can make such a huge difference. And I think if you look at the best teams in Overwatch, they're the ones who can play at the high pace without sacrificing the coordination and execution. And
Yeah, I
so,
mean,
yeah.
we when Goats was the big thing, the two best teams had the hilariously aggro Reinhardts, as well as a fine tuned everyone else.
Mhm. Yeah, and like the only real exception to that rule, like as the Overwatch League's, strategies developed throughout Goats and even before, like the NYXL were really the only team that played very defensively and reactively that had sustained success.
Yeah, I
And
think a
they
few
still never
episodes ago we
won
called them, yeah.
and they still never won the thing. They came short. That was their gimmick.
I mean, I think a while ago we called them the power bottom of the league.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I remember making that an episode title and wondering if YouTube was going to get mad about that. Like, nah, fuck it, we're doing it live. We're doing it anyway. Let's go.
Sometimes you just got to
Um,
commit to the joke.
yeah, but that again, they have not managed to win with that. And so we'll see what happens to Atlanta in this tournament. I feel like as long as they don't go out with a whimper like they did last tournament, it will be better. Cuz that was
Yeah.
just that was not fun to watch. That was rough.
No.
That was painful.
Yeah,
Nobody liked that.
that was just kind of depressing.
Yeah. All right. So we gonna say, and on that note, let's go to the new no.
Well, I mean, let's, because there really isn't too much to talk about. That there was a piece of news that broke while we were covering the results.
Oh,
Uh,
should we do that first?
yeah, sure, let's do that because it is Shanghai Dragons have added a new member to their coaching staff, a familiar face. Um, Basically, throughout the win streak in July, they've had a new member of the coaching staff sort of acting in a trial role, and after the success that they had, they have signed Damon as their new coach.
Huh.
Damon, if you guys remember, was a member of the Shanghai Dragons back during the disastrous season one. He was one of the wave of Korean imports that they brought in to try and right the ship mid season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we're back again.
Yeah, he has returned, and he had been he's been, after leaving Shanghai, he played a bit more, but then transitioned to a coaching role during 2020. Coached for Element Mystic and the Guangzhou Charge briefly, and now he has ended up here.
Should be interesting then,
Yeah, I
especially
think.
with that dropping right before a tournament.
Yeah, and if he played a part in, they seem, ready to attribute at least a part of their success in this tournament cycle to him. So good for Damon. Let's see what they got.
All right.
So next piece of news, because of travel times and complications, the pre-tournament workshop events have been canceled to give teams more time to prepare. And sad as I am that that's the case, I think it is definitely the right move, especially because during the week, Rush, the head coach of the Dallas Fuel, sort of lamented that the Western teams don't really get as much time to prepare because they have to travel. Then they have to do media stuff, and then they have to play without having as much practice time as they would like.
Yeah. Because, yeah, compared with the APAC teams who just keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get why they did this. And honestly, I would love to see the workshop events played by teams that aren't in the tournament in much the same way they would do all-star stuff. Just be like, hey, let's throw some teams together of some players who just
Mhm.
want to have fun for an afternoon and let's fucking go. Like, I think that would be a fun way to do it and maybe a way to do it for the Countdown Cup,
Yeah.
but who knows? The
It.
league obviously does not have my number, so
Yeah.
I don't get input.
None of us do.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing,
Yeah.
honestly. Not
So
everyone can be trusted with that power.
another adjustment that's been made on the part of the league is that all matches will have a replay starting at 9:30 a.m. Pacific the next day, because matches get real fucking late for Eastern viewers, and replays will also count towards drops and rewards, which I think is a very good thing that should have kind of been the case to begin with.
They've been doing them a bit for APAC matches. They'll pick one and then put it before watch point on Saturday and Sunday mornings. And I think this
Uh-huh.
past week, Friday morning, because we had Thursday matches. So they would do a replay of one match and they pre picked that match. So whether it was a banger or a 3-0 is, you know, anyone's. Who,
Mhm.
wow. Wow, that got away from me. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that they're doing that for these matches that are played at night because I can listen to matches while I'm at work. It's just my audio. I minimize the video and I go. I can't, I do things at night.
Pretty
I'm
much.
busy in the evenings,
We have lives.
believe it or not.
So yeah, no,
But yeah.
I think the replays counting towards drops and rewards is good. It'll help, it might nudge some people to check out the replays more, which, I think that's a good thing. Like, viewer having more eyes on the product is a benefit.
Yeah, and it helps for viewers in later time zones who would otherwise get caught. Because if matches start at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, that's 9:30 Eastern.
Yeah, and
And those can run super late.
yeah, so I think this is just a smart move all around. Um,
Yeah.
Next bit of news: Fury has surpassed 10,000 career eliminations in the Overwatch League. He is the only player currently in the Western region to do so, and I believe he is the fourth overall.
Yay! Congrats to
Um,
Fury.
Prophet was the first.
Of course he was.
Yeah, it's not a huge shocker with that.
Yeah, but it's it's still a hell of a career highlight.
Oh, absolutely. Like,
So yeah,
it,
good for
and
Fury. Congratulations.
and it says, and I think it's a thing that's really worth bringing up, just because the dude has been so good for so long, and he doesn't get talked about as much as I think he should.
He's just been consistent.
Yeah, he is quietly, consistently awesome. Um, and in the news, the last bit of news we have, Mike Haley has been demoted from Guangzhou's main roster into a two-way contract.
Okay.
So Mike Haley will now be playing for their, I believe, their academy team, Up Academy, for the foreseeable as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's life sometimes.
Yeah, and I think it's good to give him a chance to play and develop. But realistically, Eileen and Choi Se-hwan have been doing well enough that I don't think swapping them out is going to give you like a tangible benefit.
Yeah, and I mean, Choi has been, I don't want to be like above everyone else, but like Choi's been a playmaker.
Choi's kind of been their star player.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I'd love to see Guangzhou do a little better. I
Yeah,
would.
well, again, they're another team that I think has so much talent for the difficulties that they've had.
Yeah, and I think they would be, again, if we just mushed all the teams together, middle of the pack.
Yeah, but with the roster that they have, I would like to see more out of them.
Yeah. I mean, we are no longer none coach with left Choi, so we'll
Yeah,
see what happens there.
it's true.
And they too have 2 weeks to kind of get stuff figured out before the next tournament
Mhm.
cycle begins. And we won't know the hero pool until after this tournament's over, so it's 1 week of just general prep and 1 week of figuring out what the fuck the meta's gonna be with whatever the hero pool is.
And what that results in, we shall see.
I'm curious as to who you think will be pulled, because it can't be Tracer, Sombra, Rhine, or Zen.
I think it would be very interesting to see what would happen if, like, Winston gets pulled or Lucio, like, because Lucio's been such a key part of like a gigantic chunk of comps, and so has Winston. Like, I obviously don't know what's going to happen, and I think it's kind of pointless to speculate because it's kind of a random draw out of, the heroes that qualify. But
I wouldn't be surprised to see May or Symmetra get
that's
pulled.
possible. That's definitely a possibility. Though I
I
feel
think
like outside of the brawl comp, you don't really see them get played too much.
we've seen a shit ton of May throughout the summer showdown.
Oh, well, yeah,
Like
no,
a
but it's the
lot.
same brawl comps that were around in the May Melee, just with the added symmetra tweak when Dallas kind of showed how crazy flexible you can be with the TPs.
Fair.
Like, you don't really see May outside of the brawl comps.
I would also find it interesting if Anna or Batiste got pulled.
Yeah, which would both very dramatically affect what comps are viable because BAP is a really big part of the more brawly comps, while Ana is a really big part of like the pick heavy or dive heavy comps, especially.
Yeah. So we'll see. And then again, like, oh, what tank would be pulled? And I'm sitting here going, maximum chaos, Diva.
Oh yeah, that would be a crazy one to see.
That honestly, of everything I've listed, I just kind of want to see Diva pulled. Just it will be hell on earth for the
Mhm.
off tanks and for comps, and I know that. But at heart, I am a Chengdu. I
Oh,
am a
we
chaos
we
goblin.
we know this.
Yeah, this is if any new listeners have gotten this far, hi, we love you. And also, I'm here for the sheer chaos. I'm one of those assholes who loves hero pools just to see what happens
And I hate
because
them
I
because
don't
they
have to deal with it.
and I hate them because they drag down the overall quality of the play.
So we take very different approaches to this.
Yes.
Yeah, but just pulling Diva would be insane in
Oh,
terms
it
of
would
trying
change
to
a
work around
ton
that.
of stuff. So let's get into our predictions for the Summer Showdown, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first match that we're going to have is the Chengdu Hunters versus the Dallas Fuel.
I'm thinking probably Dallas.
I feel very comfortable with that pick, and I think I'm going to go that same direction myself.
And then it's Atlanta versus Shanghai in the rematch of that one real painful match from last time.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, probably Shanghai.
I feel pretty confident that Shanghai is going to take that win.
And really, in terms of overall winners, it's probably going to come down to Dallas or Shanghai again. But good goddamn if I don't want Chengdu to just roll up and go nuts. A team
You,
that isn't red or blue.
you want an upset for the sake of having an upset? What the fuck?
I'm also just really tired of the same old song and dance. And remember, I picked Chengdu to win the May Melee. I
I
thought they
know,
were
and
going to do it. I was wrong.
I thought I didn't agree with it then. I don't agree with it now.
Yeah, no, it's gonna come down to either Dallas or Shanghai. Let's be completely real,
Yeah.
probably Dallas, but I would love to see either Chengdu or Atlanta
Well, I think
pick it up.
Shanghai has a pretty damn good chance of it as well. I mean, they
Yeah,
won last time and they still have the Wrecking Ball comp. They can still break out the Orisa comps if they want to. Like, they haven't as much, but Fate can absolutely play the Orisa. It really does come down to, I think, have the adaptations that the Dallas Fuel made been enough to sort of plug the weaknesses that Shanghai was able to exploit last time. And I don't know.
I don't either.
I
It's
think it's
it's
going to
gonna
come
be a
down
coin
to
flip.
I think it's going to come down to those same two teams because frankly I don't think Atlanta's going to. I think what's going to happen is Dallas and Shanghai are both going to advance. Chengdu and Atlanta, I think Atlanta is probably going to take that win, but regardless, I don't think either one of those teams is going to win against whichever team loses the Dallas and Shanghai match in the upper bracket.
You don't think they're getting out of the losers bracket final,
I don't think so.
which is fair. It's fair.
I think
It
whoever
took
wins between Dallas and Shanghai in that initial matchup, you know, is going to be. I think whichever one of them comes out on top, the loser is still going to be more than enough for either of the other two teams. And that's not to say these teams are bad, but the thing is, Atlanta hasn't really been able to convert yet. And if they play, they have a lot of, I think they have a lot of skill, but if they play defensively, I think it does kind of end up hurting them against these two teams. And I think right now, Dallas and Shanghai are just both at a different level for most of the competition. I think Atlanta probably beats Chengdu, but the thing is, I can absolutely see Chengdu's mobility and weirdness just sort of being too much at the same time. So I'm definitely leaning Atlanta, but I don't think you could count Chengdu out of that entirely.
Yeah, that's honestly that is the long and short of it.
Mm-hmm.
I want Chengdu to win. I'm sure it's not going to happen, but I want it.
I know.
Allow me my pipe dreams.
You're allowed. I have said nothing about
I
this.
know. I know what my pickums are going to look like, and they're not going to have a Chengdu win because I try to be relatively sane with those.
Mm,
But in my heart of hearts, I want the Chaos Pandas.
yeah.
I do. It's a great band name, and I'd love to see them take home a trophy.
Yeah, and it'll be nice to happen sometime, but I think they've got to find a consistency in their performances before that really happens.
Fair. Fair. I have nothing else to say for this one.
Yeah, so I guess I've kind of said how I think this is going to go. I like I'm for me, it's really a coin flip who ends up winning. Like, I want it to be Dallas just because I am the bigger Dallas fan, but Shanghai have continued to look really fucking good, and we've just got to see what happens here.
Yeah, like I want Chengdu to win. I'm betting Dallas. And while I do think, and I don't know if the numbers will back me up on this one, I think Shanghai probably has the better record in terms of wins and map differential. But I also don't think, with the exception of Shanghai and I don't think there are as many holy shit teams in APAC as there are in NA.
Yeah, like the thing is, I think APAC's general, body of quality is lower but more consistent, whereas NA has more extremes, like more big highs and more deep lows.
Yeah. Whereas APAC is Shanghai, almost everyone else, the Valiant.
It's Shanghai, then there's a tier break. And then I think like at this point some of these teams have differentiated themselves enough that like you can sort of,
Hangzhou, Seoul, New York.
yeah, I'd say Hangzhou, Seoul, and New York are kind of a step above. Chengdu fluctuates wildly because they're Chengdu,
As does Philly, because
as
I
does.
guess it's contagious if you're orange.
Well, hey, yeah, remember Philly in season 1 and season 2, inconsistency was their thing.
Yeah, but not fun inconsistency like Chengdu.
No.
For Chengdu, it's a feature. For Philly, it's a bug.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. Yeah.
And then Guangzhou, and then the Valiant.
Yeah.
I don't think I missed anyone there. Anyway, too many teams in APAC with the same fucking colors.
It's true.
It drives me crazy. It's just like, who won that match? Was it Philly or was it Chengdu? I don't know. The shorthand isn't helping.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, that they only play each other once in a blue moon. It's fine.
Hmm. So, to confirm, you are going with Dallas for your choice to win.
In terms of practicality, yes.
Yeah. Whereas I want Dallas to win, but I'm like, me being the pragmatist, I'm like, do I feel confident enough to say that I think Dallas has a better chance than Shanghai right now? I don't know.
I mean, they have a better chance than our other two teams, but that's
I,
not going to
I
stop me.
yeah, I do think this is a two-horse race, but
They've all been that. And
uh,
these have been the horses.
yes.
This has not changed. And that's kind of why I wanted Washington and the Gladiators here, in which case it would very definitively have been a Shanghai win. But you know what? Fuck it. It would have been fun.
True, but
Not to say that this won't be fun.
yeah, I was going to point out, regardless of what you want in terms of variety, you can't deny that the Dallas and Shanghai matches have been some of, if not the best matches that we've had all year.
Oh, yeah, it's still going to be amazing shit. I just wanted
Yeah.
something different.
Yeah, and that's fair, but right now I am not disappointed by what we're seeing at all.
Oh, no, I know. Yeah. Yeah. So Dallas it is. Hopefully, maybe we think.
Like I said, I really do think I think realistically Shanghai is probably the favorite, but I want Dallas to win because I'm a Dallas fan.
Do you need to get your coin out and flip it?
No, like I've committed. I've
Committed to
committed.
Shanghai?
Yeah, no. The thing is, I've committed that I want Dallas to win, but I think that Shanghai are probably the odds favored team here. That being, I'm just putting that disclaimer out there so it's not people saying that like I'm discounting Shanghai or anything because you can't, you shouldn't. They are
Yeah.
too fucking good and have been too fucking good too consistently at this point to sort of like be doubtful of them the way that I was in the May Melee.
Yeah.
I
And I
feel
mean,
justified in my appraisal of them at the time of the May Melee, but this
yeah,
is not that. This is
yeah.
definitely not the same situation.
Yeah. And this, I mean, we talk about how the level of sheer ridiculous S teams in the APAC division is lower. That doesn't mean Shanghai's not good.
Oh yeah,
I
no,
mean,
they're
gestures loudly to the tune tournament.
like I said, they're the ones who are the reigning tournament champs going into this. They're the ones who have the title belt.
Anyway, we're going in circles at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make my the stance between my bias as a fan and my expectation as an analyst clear.
Oh, I'm just still slightly boggled that I'm picking Dallas instead of you in a Dallas match.
Again,
That
I
has
said
never happened.
I said I want them to win, and they are getting my pick, even though I think Shanghai is probably slightly more likely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's that is my position. I am merely
Fair.
saying this in the interest of full disclosure and making it clear that I am not writing off or downplaying the Shanghai Dragons. I think their victory is probably slightly more likely, even though I think this is still a very, 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 very close scenario.
Fair. And I'm out here with the fire bet going. Pandas, though. Anyway, I think that's about all we've got.
I think so too. I think it's
We
time for
have
the Reddit
taken,
check.
yeah, we have taken 1 page of notes and we have made it an hour and a half. But admittedly, much of that 1 page of notes was recapping 20 fucking matches. Jesus Christ.
Yes.
That was as as much as I love Overwatch League. I love it so much. It's so good for my mental health when it's in season. That was too many. That was too many for one weekend. I
Remember
can't
when
do
that
that
was
many
like
again.
consistent?
Yeah. Yeah, but that was when we were doing 4 a night instead of like 6 or 7 in a day.
Yeah.
And half of those were in the middle of the night. Admittedly, for like any viewer who wasn't in Pacific time zone,
Oh,
half
it
of
was
them
the
were in the
worst
middle of the
scenario.
fucking night anyway.
Yeah.
Local time zones are a nightmare. Uh, I say that as someone who used to live in Mountain Time Zone, which is the only time zone that they don't list when they list off program times. People outside of America don't think Mountain Time Zone is a thing. They're like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, that's Colorado. That's what that is. What's
What's
a
this?
Colorado?
What's this?
Okay, fine. It's where the capital is in the Hunger Games. Fucking Denver. Not actually kidding.
I didn't know
That's,
that.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's one of those things that I picked up on because I've lived in Colorado for so
Mhm.
many years, but they're talking about, oh, it's here. Oh, there's a base built into the mountain. And I'm like, bitch, that's Cheyenne Mountain. That's Colorado
I
Springs
was
right
about to
there.
say, is that like intentional or is that just where they shot it for the movie? Like, is that
Oh,
written
no,
into
no,
the
no.
book?
This was a books thing.
Oh, okay.
This was before the movies
All
came
right,
out.
all
This was,
right.
and then when they released the map of where Panem was in relation to the United States coastlines and whatnot, yeah, the capital is right on Colorado. And I'm like, yeah, the second they were like, it's built into the side, there's a base built into the side of the mountain. And I'm like, that's Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Base. All right. The infrastructure was already there. That's where NORAD is.
The more you know.
Yeah. Anything on Reddit?
Outside of Poco wearing a watermelon, no.
What? Just for the lulz?
I mean, that's why he does most things.
This is fair. All right, I'm gonna take that mental image of Poco wearing a watermelon, and we should close this up.
Yeah, I think we've hit that point.
All right, where can the people find you?
At the_rage_nerd on Twitter.
I'm Katie. You can follow me all over the social medias, as well as on YouTube and Twitch at Kiaxet. That is Kiaxet. I am also on another podcast, Rooster Team Radio. We talk about many, many things Rooster Teeth, mostly in the animation sector. And guys, RTX at Home was this past weekend and also this coming weekend. because they really went for it. And I got to say, I appreciate that. So we are going to have things to talk about because there were a number of panels that we are interested in. And all I can say is Camp Betrayal is the funniest fucking thing I've seen in weeks, and I can't wait for it. It's good, you guys. It's good. Yes, follow us on Twitter at On The Point Pod. I feel like there was more here before the very important things, but I don't remember it. So, very important things. Like we said earlier, get vaccinated. The Delta variant is a thing, and it's an entire giant bitch, and we hate it. So, get vaccinated if and when you can. Please continue to wear a mask, even if you're already vaccinated. I definitely know someone personally who is vaccinated and still did get COVID. She's doing okay, but that's a thing that happens. So, vaccination, mask, be kind to people, be kind to your essential workers. They have to still be out here in all of this. Be kind to them. They're human beings. Be kind to your postal people. Support the post office. Contact your representatives. Please contact your representatives. Please contact your representatives. Vote
Please.
locally. Please, please vote in your local elections. Black Lives Matter. Black LGBTQIA lives matter. Black trans lives matter. Black Lives Matter. AAPI lives matter. It's not going to change. It hasn't changed. Just etch that on your heart. And yeah, get vaccinated, wear a mask, take care of each other, because that's how we're going to get through this, is basic human compassion. And remember that we love you. Do we miss anything?
I don't think so.
All right, enjoy your tournament weekend, and let's C9.